What is going on, y'all? This is Keeden 7 with TeamJVS. I am super excited today because, as you know, I also do the Bat Therapy podcast with my good friend, Dr. Emilia Brown, and she is going to join us today. We're going to be doing a special crossover episode. First time ever, TeamJVS, Bat Therapy, cross up. I also have Sam with me, SEL0320 himself. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Oh, great.
I feel like I'm in a CW crossover and I love it.
It's big.
Yeah, right? It's like when Supergirl came over to the Flash show. Yeah.
There you go.
I'm super excited. These are the people I hang out with every week, and now I'm hanging out with both of them, and it's absolutely excellent. And it's funny because normally Sam has his guys' night on Thursday nights. Normally, me and Amelia record on Tuesday nights, and so we're meeting halfway on a Wednesday. So I'm super excited. This just means a lot to me. We also have another member of Team JVS that's going to be joining us, Jedi Mike. And I'm super stoked because we are going to be talking Invincible.
Yes.
Before we get started, I want to just let y'all know this is going to be full of spoilers. So if you have not seen the first 4 episodes of Invincible Season 2, don't listen unless you don't mind spoilers, because we are going to be talking spoilers, and we're going to be doing some character breakdowns like we normally do on our Bat Therapy podcast, but we're going to be doing it with Team JVS. So I am stoked.
Yeah. I'm particularly excited to join you all for this one because Keeden introduced me to comics, and so I was always feeling like I was trying to catch up. And Invincible, I actually read the comics and knew all about it way before the show happened. Wow. So yeah, I was really excited about it. It's such a good comic.
Yeah. So first things first, Sam, what did you think of? Because before we jump straight into season 2, we have to talk about how season 1 ended, right? Because our main character, he suddenly finds out that not only is his dad not a hero, but his dad also tries to kill him, right? So that's got to be a shock to the system right there. But then moving between seasons 1 and 2, I feel like there's a lot of shifting in attitudes and feelings and emotions. And Sam, first I wanted to get your thoughts on it, and then I was going to take it to Mike, and then Emilia, I was going to let you take a go at it.
Sounds good.
Yeah, no, for sure. Emotional damage is the 2 words that come to my mind, because the truth of the matter is, if you go with the first episode, like, Mark hadn't even gotten his powers yet. And it was kind of like he's always looked up to his dad. He's always wanted to kind of emulate him and connect with him on that level that there's another part of him that he couldn't connect with. And then he finally did. And then he realized, wow, there's a lot of expectation here. There's a lot of collateral damage here. There's a lot of responsibility here. All that touch and go at the same exact time. His dad is laid up in the hospital. So for the whole season, he's like, I got to meet these expectations. I got to meet the expectations. I got to do better. Getting to the last episode, and he's starting to realize not only is his dad not perfect, which is, you strive to be connected to your hero, right? And like, his dad was his hero, and he loves his mom so much, and he thought that his family was just so connected, and it was an immediate disconnect. Like, it was almost as though he didn't even want to be connected to his dad in any shape or form anymore, because he couldn't, because he had to kind of look inward, like, oh man, what this man has done is not only genocidal, but he's looked at us as nothing. He's willing to not only kill me, but enslave the entire human race with the power that he has himself. And so, like, I think it was the moment where they were fighting in the air, and he was kind of like, what will all this matter in 500 years? None of this will matter in over 500 years. Like, they'll still be here. And like, he's like, they still matter because it still happened. You can't ignore it not happening. And it's just so fascinating to me, like how destructive emotionally it was for Mark, because not only was he physically broken, like he was emotionally scarred. Like he was used to kill thousands of people at once. Like his body was used to kill thousands of people, and he couldn't stop it. He was not only powerless, they used him like a tool. And at the same time, after all that happened, his dad also left. And so he's left with the fact that his dad beat him almost to death, left with all this mess and responsibility, and he left him and his mom for nothing. And yeah, it was a lot, man. So I'm really excited to kind of break down what that looks like from an emotional level. It's unthinkable, honestly.
Definitely, Mike.
Yeah. As someone who, I guess, Mark is only child, I'm only child, and you look at terms of reverence in terms of your father, thinking that he is a superhero, literally. But then it kind of get flips on his axis when you're talking about never meet your heroes, even though that hero tends to be your father, who you basically grew up with the rest of your life.
That's a good point.
So it's like again with the previous season, again we get into this build up. And definitely with the cliffhanger at the end about everything that's happened. But what you see is that what happens when we try to be something we want to be, but then realize like the very thing we try to be is something unthinkable, right? Basically a monster, right? And then you're thinking, his blood is my blood. Am I going to become like him? This goes to things about, generational curses, of where, people feel like, oh, well, my dad had anger issues, so therefore I have it, which we do see that Mark has that side of, of his dad. He just, tap into it. But again, that fears him now. And what we see when we get to the beginning of the season, I love just terms of they don't waste any time dealing with the aftermath. And unlike some stories, you just want to rush. Like, yeah, we have a time jump, but again, you're still feeling the emotional weight of people going through this, really different stages of survival guilt. You have one where, people are basically feeling bad that they're alive, but they feel like they failed because they could have saved more lives. But then all of a sudden, some other family members of people that have been killed are now you're seeing their stories from which you didn't see the extension of these characters other than them in the first season. So I like how we're going to get into this in different layers and everything like that. So
definitely. Emilia.
Yeah. So I think you guys are just hitting on such really important stuff. What I really love about these comics and the show, I think, has done justice to the comics very much. So they've stuck very true to it. There is just a lot of character development, and you just connect with these characters very well. I mean, Mark he's going through his teens. His dad's a superhero. And he's waiting. He's just desperately waiting to get his superpowers. He finally gets his superpowers. And, Sam, great point. His dad's kind of out for a while. He's in the hospital. So Mark's kind of figuring it out a lot on his own. But he finally gets what he wants. And then all of a sudden, it's all just ripped away. It's all completely ripped away. And not just his idea of what being a superhero would be, but his home life and what he thinks that is. I mean, his mom is compared to a pet. And it kind of reminds me of Homelander in some ways, in terms of you're so powerful, you don't see yourself on the same level as everyone around you. It's kind of like how we see a fruit fly as very different than ourselves, right? I mean, if you think about power level, if you think about how long you live in comparison. And so it's kind of understandable that he sees it in that way, but man, I cannot imagine what that would be like for Mark. Not to mention that Mark, also cares about his mom. His mom hears all this stuff that happens. She hears everything his dad says. And so the whole family is just kind of torn apart. And absolutely, there's this huge piece in season 2 of, okay, well, I was literally just figuring out how to do the superpowers and figure out, okay, how do you start being a superhero? And now I have to worry about becoming a terrible supervillain at the same time. And my dad says that our genetics take over. The Viltrium genetics, they clear out the human genetics, the DNA. It's so powerful. So what do I need to be afraid of from my dad?
And what's so interesting about it is Mark had to go through this heavy transition at lightning speed. He literally went from, my dad is my hero, I want to be just like him, to being in complete fear of being just like him. And it happened just like that. And what's even more interesting is when we jump into season 2, they do this interesting thing in the first episode where we see what would happen if Mark was exactly like his dad. And it goes back to something I feel like we've touched on a lot in our podcast, which is people end up being a product of their environment, right? And Omni-Man, Mark's dad, he was raised in this system of everyone except other Viltrumites are ants to you. They're not, these are not powerful. And so he's also locked in that mindset, and we see character growth even from him, because we're seeing, oh, everyone does still have that that potential to change, but at the same time it's extremely difficult given how much time you might have spent in a particular environment.
I mean, it definitely is. I think what you're talking about rings true. So there's genetics. Genetics are important in terms of different traits we might have, just like diseases and things that might happen. And then there's what is the environment we grow up in? What do we learn socially from the people who raise us, from the other kids around us, and other things going on? And then there's cultural. So, you're hitting on the culture that his dad grew up in, which was such a strong culture that he took it with him light years and light years. And he's so separated from his people. And yet all of these cultural beliefs and traditions still really ring true for him, even though he's been playing a part for so long.
That's a good point, Sam.
Yeah, no, I think it's very fascinating. And it happens, like there are some times where your parents grew up in a different environment and they may have struggled, and then they bring you up in a better environment, but they have to be able to maintain who they are, their identity. Like there's certain traits that they cannot remove because they're ingrained in them. And I think the hard struggle with that is, for Mark, that I can kind of think of, is if his dad could go this long and lie to his face and be willing to beat him to death, he has to be in his head like, am I capable of that? Not just the physicality, not just the enslavement, but the lying, the manipulation. Like he killed the original Guardians, right? And so it's like, I mean, that's one of the shocking things of the first episode. I was low-key out, because again, I haven't read the comics. And so I was like, oh, this is such a wholesome little animation. And I was like, really dope, this is really cool superhero origin. And like when Omni-Man showed up, and I was like, this don't feel right. And then all of a sudden, like their version of the Flash gets his head crushed in.
It was brutal. It was like, brutal.
I don't know what you've done, Robert Kirkman, but but I mean, the fact that he did that with people he's worked with for years, and he did it and covered it up, and he did it so calculative. And Mark had to reconcile, like, man, am I capable of doing that with another group? Like, that may put him off from joining other groups. Because the truth of the matter is, it may be the Omni-Man distanced himself not because he just didn't want to work with others. He may realize, like, yeah, eventually I may have to actually kill all these people. So I need to kind of disconnect. But the other side of that is he did connect with, you know, the mother. He did connect with Mark. He did make a new home.
He did.
And I think that's honestly the reason why he didn't kill his son at the end. Like, he realized, like, man, I don't think I can do this. I need to leave. And there's a lot of times when people, like, disagreements happen, and all of a sudden, like, you right before, and I know this is a very huge extreme, right before you about to do something you regret, like, I need to walk away from this. I need to process my emotions and get out of here, because I'm going to do something I regret, because I really haven't understood why I'm doing it. And I think that's the most interesting thing, that when you go into season 2, they play so many different interesting foundations as far as Omni-Man that I didn't think we would go down that route. But yeah.
It's really interesting too, because like you said, you can hopefully get to that point where you go, whoa, and find that way to step back. And the really interesting with Omni-Man, think about where his step back point is. He's murdered thousands upon thousands of people.
Millions.
In what, minutes?
Millions if you count on other planets, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Let's count other planets too.
That one episode where he took that whole civilization out. It was like for a week.
Just done.
Years for them, but I was just like.
So think where his line was. And it makes sense, because he thought that this woman was his pet, but then he builds a life with her and has a son, and he's probably milliseconds from murdering this son, because the son refuses. He wasn't raised like a Viltrumite, so he's refusing to do that, and something stops him. And what I love about season 2 is that at the very end of those 4 episodes, it starts kind of unraveling that piece too. So it's not just Mark, and also I definitely want to make sure we touch on his mom too. But it's not just them in terms of the family and dealing with these things, but also his dad. And so, okay, I stopped myself before I went too far in his view, but for everyone else, he's already gone way too far. And so it's a really, I think, interesting turn on, Sam, what you're talking about. I think all of us can understand is, oh man, what happens when you can stop yourself, but you've already gone way, way too far.
Yeah. I think that at the final episode, again, like, even from, it goes back to the line of Professor X, even though somebody stumbles or loses their way, it doesn't mean they're lost forever. And when we go back into that flashback with, when Mark is just playing baseball, and still like, Nolan is still being reserved and having that the attitude being standoff, being detached, because that's all he ever knew. Right. But then that's also a thing, even in a marriage too, is like, sometimes our partner is able to bring us into experiences we never had before, not knowing that it's actually a lightning thing that we can have in our lives. And we forget about that. And I don't have kids yet, I'm working on that. But it's like, when I eventually have kids, it's like years from now, I'm like, okay, well, we have moments where we might have heated arguments and stuff, but then I remember, well, that's still my child, and so I think that, again, that goes into different aspects. Again, just like, even though we might have our issues, it's still like, we're still family. But again, also there's also a level of forgiveness that are applied to in these relationships. Yeah. And is there a D that's far from forgiveness? That's the question.
And oh boy, is there, like, there's so much to forgive here, right? Because I mean, even though he doesn't kill him, he says a ton of terrible stuff. I mean, he literally uses him to murder a bunch of people, and he pretty much says, "I will kill you." Like, everyone probably thought, "Well, Mark's dead."
It's gonna be a 1-season show.
It's a 1-season show. And I don't know. I think that's part of what I like about Invincible is it really takes things to these like extremes and either ridiculous or just like you just go whoa at times and have to think yourself through like, man, how does Mark find his way through? Because in some ways it's almost psychologically easier to come to terms with, okay, my dad was good and now he's bad, right? Even though it was very confusing, it was still in some ways black and white. Wait, but now my dad's good again? So like this is so trippy for Mark.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where do you go from? It's so much more complicated. Okay, if I forgive my dad, what does that mean about, you know, am I betraying the earth and all? Yeah, am I betraying humanity and all the people that he murdered? Like how it's a very tough thing to come to terms with. It almost would have, in some ways, I think it would have been easier not knowing that his dad had come around, at least somewhat from what we know from, you know, through what we can see of season 2.
Yeah. And what's even more interesting is I'm thinking about what Mark is going through with all of that. But we also have to remember, one, he hasn't had his powers for very long. And two, he's a freshman in college. Like, I'm thinking about all of the emotions that that I'm feeling at my age now. But like, think about that as a high schooler / college freshman. Think about when we were freshmen in college.
I knew Keeden when he was a senior in high school, freshman in college.
We even gotta go. That's a whole nother episode. We don't even, Sam, I don't need your side eye either. This isn't about me. We're talking about Invincible right now. And I was just trying to bring up a very good point. No, we're not doing this.
Well, I mean, I can add, you know, I was one that's recently graduated, so I understand like the college experience a little bit to the modern context, you know. So like one thing that I felt freshman year of college, and I can imagine they're just big milestones for a family, right? And the fact that he had his graduation, his dad's not there. And you know, going to college, his dad's not there. You know, but only that is just there's almost not even think that he's getting these moments of accomplishments, but he's still not appreciating them because deep down, and what I'm thinking that I don't think he deserves it. You know, because again, it's like even when his mom is like having, you know, just having dinner or just trying to keep moving day by day. She's she's self-loathing through, you know, alcoholism, you know, obviously drinking a lot, coping with that. And again, like try to just negate just basic needs of just like, hey, you know, I'll cook dinner or something like that. It's just it's easy to just to detach from that, but not basking like, hey, you know, we still have to live our lives, but again, your dad's not there.
Well, and also we still have to live our lives. Oh, but also our dad / husband is a mass murderer and he's not here.
Right.
For people's retribution, essentially.
He dipped. And so we're getting all the blame for it.
Yeah.
We're getting all the blame for sharing our walls with a monster all this time, right? And it's not even that we're necessarily getting the blame for it, but we're feeling the guilt of it.
Oh yeah.
Because we're here to see, they're there to see all of the damage that was done by him while he's not just, and I know Mark's got to really be feeling this to find out, oh, not only did you leave us on Earth to deal with all the mess that you caused, but now you here and wifed up with somebody else with a kid talking about I'm a changed man and I'm different. Like,
it's only been 2 weeks.
Yeah, like right, like I can't. I couldn't. My jaw was on the floor when I saw that. I was like, the nerve of this man. I was mad at J.K. Simmons. I was mad at J.K. Simmons. I was like, I can't even believe you did the voice. You did the voice work for this. I'm appalled. I was.
Oh my god. Yeah, no.
So
I think the thing about it is like when you go through something that Mark went through, how can you really truly trust again? You know what I'm saying? Like your first understandings of humanity starts with your parents, you know, like if they're kind and understanding and forgiving, But if they're liars, if they're abusers, like your perception of everybody else around you it's gotta be slanted. Like part of him has to feel like, one, I can't trust myself. What if I go down this route? Am I gonna be my dad? Then the other part of this is, how can he really truly trust again? But I think that it's funny when it comes to him being a freshman. I think that Cecil he made a good point. He's like, you need to get your head on straight. Like, you're still in a tailspin. But
Yeah.
Cecil was doing that for his own agenda. Like
I was about to say, Cecil's just
make
using them
sure
too.
that Mark's still on humanity's side. And I think that Mark realizes that he does want that because he wants to keep some semblance of humanity that he has left.
Well,
I
and
think
part
that's
of
the real
why,
reason.
yeah, and I think part of why he goes with Cecil is, Sam, something you said really struck me, which is, how can he trust himself? So he was already trying to figure out, how do you do the superhero thing? And I love all the side characters because they're also trying to figure it out. How do we actually do this in a way that works? And then you realize you never figured it out that your dad was hardcore lying your entire life. Okay, I have a lot of powers. And in fact, I have a lot of powers, much like this guy. I have a lot of his DNA, and I didn't see it coming. Someone else needs to be in charge of me. I can't trust myself. I think that's why he's leaning into Cecil. I mean, Cecil's sketchy. I mean, what government person in these kinds of comics and stuff isn't? But yeah, I think you're right with that, in the not being able to trust himself through this is definitely coloring what he does from there.
I also want to acknowledge Amber, the relationship that Amber had with Mark, because that was one of my biggest negatives I've had in season 1, of just like, whether you don't know I'm Spider-Man, no pun intended, but like, at least I might be going through things situational wise and not just at least having a sense of understanding or grace, with me. But then what she did, again, it's almost like a complete 180 of her character for me when I was watching this. Is like, of all the things we need, our girlfriend should not be, just like, why did you come here on time? Why were you late to graduate? I'm sorry, I'm dealing with, dealing with my mom, dealing with, my dad, dealing with grief in me, and again, which is the times of grief like that, or just loss in general, is that, especially if you're in a relationship, those can be very trying times, because you don't know what you're going to react to. Like, like 2 weeks ago, my grandmother passed away, and I'm a newlywed, and like this was like my first loss that me and my wife had experienced in our marriage, and so again, it just, in those times, those really just test not only in terms of your character or who you are, but also just in terms of the weight of the relationship itself. And that's why I felt with Amber, what she'd done, at least with episodes I've seen so far, she's been nothing but supportive for Mark and throughout this whole episodes, and definitely giving him the college experience, I guess.
I know
That's one way to put it.
Wow, on the door. On the door.
Give him a nice little distraction. So this is something where Mark is better off than his mom. Now, I think that Debbie probably feels a lot of the things he is even more intensely. She was the one that married him, connected with him for longer, brought a son into the world together. But I mean, she has, gosh, I can't remember his name, but the guy who like creates the super suits in this.
Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the voice actor for Mark Hamill.
Is it?
Yes.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
What?
Yeah.
Art. Yeah, Art. Yeah, the superhero Taylor. Yeah, Art. That's Mark.
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna have
Mark
to
Hamill.
re-listen to that. I totally did not put that together. I love Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she connects with Art here and there, but I mean, the poor woman, because she lost her husband. All these terrible things have happened, but she also, how do you grieve the loss of someone when everyone else is reeling from the death and destruction that person did? And it was so poignant when she connects with that support group in season 2, and then someone finds out who her superhero husband was. So these are spouses of superheroes who have died. It's a support group for them. You're not supposed to talk about who they were, but inevitably she connects with one of them, and they end up finding out her husband killed his wife. And he was pretty much like, you're not welcome there anymore. And so that's both Mark and his mom really have that to struggle with. And I think what you bring up with Amber and Adam Eve, and just Mark has, I think, more people. And I also wonder if the youthfulness kind of helps to a certain degree with some of it too, where I don't know, he's in these points in life where he's more likely to be able to find people that can support him versus his mom. You can see her just isolating, and then that's where the drinking's there, and it's just a really tough road for her.
Well, because the mom has devoted her entire life to, staying undercover as the wife of a superhero, right? Like she's been basically his Alfred this whole time, right? She's been his support system. She's been his rock. She's been there for him. And all of a sudden, oh yeah, I look at you like my goldfish, right? When he called her his pet, that line was more devastating for me than all the people I watched him slaughter. Like that hurt so bad, because what's so interesting about this, because what makes superhero shows so and comic books so interesting is when you take these characters that are, i.e. invincible, and you put them in very human situations, right? Like we've all been through a bad breakup, right? And somebody that treated us absolutely horrible, emotionally abusive, sometimes even physically abusive, all of a sudden they leave us, we're devastated and healing, and we look over and somebody else is with them saying #blessed because they're suddenly this changed person, right? Which is what Mark is seeing with his dad. But with the mom, she's just devastated because this was the love of her life. It's not just that, oh, I knew this guy, I was friends with him, and they did something horrible. This is someone she slept next to and loved dearly, and she's finding out that he's a monster. And what's even more heartbreaking is she does the right thing. Yeah. She finds a support group. It's so disheartening when you try and do what's right and it ends up even worse. I felt so bad for her. I'm like, oh wow, support group. This is exactly what she needs. This is going to be great. This is excellent. And it's like, oh, yeah, this is bad.
And this happens where there are certain things that make it hard for people to do what's going to help them. Okay, so you're mourning the loss of a relationship, and it's someone who's done really terrible things to people. Who do you turn to? Because a lot of people are going to focus on the other things that this person did and not really be able to be there for you. It's just. I was also really struck by what you said. I mean, like, she's also had to be undercover this whole time. And Mark, too. I mean, he has a lot of superhero friends, essentially, which I think, once again, helps. But also, her out in public, it's her husband died in an explosion or something. So she has to veil it in so many ways. And then she finally finds a place that she can open up and talk about it more. But even there, they show, no, you cannot be completely honest. People aren't going to be open to being there for you.
Yeah, from an animation standpoint, I think the scene where she kind of leaves there and is just walking down the street barefoot.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the word that kind of came to my mind was like hopelessness. Like you can just feel it over it. Like she has nowhere to go and she's sinking within herself. And the sad thing is, during that same time, her son isn't even on planet. So
Oh yeah.
she doesn't have I have not read the comics, but I would not be surprised if something tragic possibly happens to her because she has no one. She can't, I mean, she technically does have Cecil, but she can't trust Cecil, you know? And the costume maker, Mark Hamill's character, I mean, I think he's really good because he's through all the years been giving this man his costumes and trusting him, confiding in him and different stuff. And I think the crazy thing is, when I remember the first season, there was a moment that I thought Omni-Man was just going to kill him based on his understanding. And the fact that Omni-Man didn't kill him, it shows how deep a relationship they actually did have, which is fascinating. But there, at least she's got him, but the hopelessness is set in. Like, I really don't know where she's going to handle it. And I give credit to the voice acting talent because Sandra Oh is a beast.
Oh yeah.
She's a great, but she is, this season, she is chopping it up and spitting it out. But there's other characters as well. Like, I mean, with Sterling K. Brown's character being introduced into this one and him dealing with his own level of devastation and how he processes all that is very fascinating. Because it takes Omni-Man as being a person, like if you imagine somebody that's the most kindest and like well-rounded person that's always helping people, and you find out that they're a serial killer, that for years they've been killing people. Like, what does that do to the families, and what does that do to everybody else connected to it? And for them to profile that with a superhero show is crazy. I've never seen anything like that. That's why I'm so excited to see where it's going to go.
Yeah, I think because again with that conversation, again, I've done like through my mental health like journey through, especially in college, and it's also like, you know, when it involves like multiple different people, whether it might be an accident or a situation, whatever. Again, you're making the right decision of like you taking 2 steps forward, only to take 6 steps back. You know, in those situations, because when people think, oh well, they have a level of unforgiveness in their heart, and saying, well, you don't, you know, well, this person did this to me, and you know, and they're not here, so I'm just going to take it out on you. That's not fair. However, but you understand, right? Again, that's just situations that a lot of us are in, I guess, in life, where we might be in a state of unforgiveness or feeling that maybe we don't deserve forgiveness ourselves, and maybe like, you know, it might be a little bit light in the at the end of the tunnel, and then you try to step, you know, closer to it, and then he's like, oh nope, you know, and then you're already back down to square one. That's why it's a journey to level of healing. You know, it's not just, you know, a easy process, right? And you're right about what Sam's talking about again. Like, Mark is already off planet, and just the situations that you're in. But just think about this: it's just like, as a parent, your kids in college, they might as well be off planet, you know. So it's like, and I feel like on the sense of a mother, especially for my mother, she felt like if I didn't contact her or at a time, whatever, is she like, what is he okay? Is something going on? Whatever. And then yet she's dealing with her own baggage. So it's like it's just stacking on top of each other. So I just think again, what they did here was a very, very realistic adaptation in terms of, again, what's going on in the real world, but again, with using superhero content in the right way, because we've seen superhero content before in many different, you know, properties, but this and along with a few others such as Gen V definitely do a very good job at highlighting, you know, real human problems, but with these supernatural characters.
And I think that's what I find so impressive about Invincible is it's very superhero. I mean, Omni-Man is so powerful, and the amount of destruction he does is so ridiculously high. And you're so right. They still make all of this stuff so relatable. And I mean, there are people who feel hopeless and trapped and can relate 100% to Debbie Grayson, or just trying to figure life out, and then it keeps like throwing curveballs at you and there's no way you can dodge them, like Mark Grayson. Or maybe you've done really terrible things and you're trying to find retribution, and yet you know that in finding a way forward, some people who may have been harmed, for them, they might not see that as justice, like Omni-Man. I mean, there's very real stuff in here, and I think they just do a wonderful job. The comics, the storyline, also the voice actors for sure. do a really great job of still connecting to the core of humanity, even though it really, I mean, this is like I mean, like, you're going to different planets, you have like destruction of like alien worlds, like there's all this stuff that's very superhero, and yet, yeah, it's so relatable.
It's right there on Earth. Yeah, it's right there on Earth because, I mean, just looking at, I feel like I do remember going through heavy stuff, whether it was like things going on with family or relationships with friends and things like that. And being a freshman staying in my dorm definitely was a good distraction from all of it, right? Because when you're on campus, you're in your own other little disgusting overpriced world. you really are. And not only that, but Mark can also run away anytime he wants. And that's such a good, it's always good to, like, because I know me, like, if I'm ever going through something, I do love just jumping in my car and just driving. This is somebody that told his girlfriend, hey, I would fly you to Paris, but if I got you there quick, your skin might fly off because I be going too fast. Like, like, this is somebody that really can just get away from it all whenever he needs to. And I need to show his mom some love because she is going through it. And I really loved that scene that when they connected, when she was slamming the cabinet door and he walked in.
Oh, that was so good.
And he walked in. It was such a good scene because it was almost like he looked and was just like, oh yeah, there is someone else going through it just like me. Because at that time, it was Mark had like tunnel vision. He was just like doing his own thing. And it's almost like, oh yeah, he realized, that's right, my mom's going through absolute hell right now, and I need to be there for her. And so I was really happy that happened. And it was just so funny how it was the small thing that brought it on, that cabinet door that she had been annoyed with. And then, of course, there's those, there's also, it was interesting the way they showed how certain things can be triggers.
Yeah.
When the couple comes and sees the house, and it was the way he was talking down to her, and she was just like, she's not your pet. Like, it just really,
you just go, oh shit.
Oh, that's a touchy subject. I'm mad too. Get them. They don't deserve a house. Housing market is horrible anyway. They ain't getting no house. Like, I was as angry as she was in that scene. I really was.
And so here's the thing, and it's once again, how it's so relatable is it can be really alienating for people where, yeah, you've dealt with some really serious stuff and things will trigger, your memories are tied to these different things that are familiar or relate to the situation that happened. And especially if there's something really traumatic that happened, oh my goodness, a lot of times the brain has trouble processing through all of that and not just going straight back into that trauma mode. And so here you have people who are probably like, what in the world was wrong with that woman? When we know her story and we know what's going on. And so it makes complete sense to us. And the thing is that a lot of times people don't, we don't see the comic book story behind someone's life. But yeah, these things go on for people all of the time, and it can really start to take over someone's life. And you see it with her. I mean, she's numbing herself out with alcohol. She tries to reach out. It doesn't go well. So she ends up literally shoeless on the streets because she doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah. I know this is completely off target, but I want to talk about a character that I didn't expect to get a whole episode dedicated to him. But I'm talking about Alan.
Yeah, Alan.
Alan, this is the thing about Alan the Alien, and I think that it's something that I realized. I was like, the first time we met him, it was kind of like a random moment. But there's a couple episodes with him in this next season, and I was kind of like, you know what? Alan is so dedicated. He's lost his whole race, and yet he's still pushing to help, to coordinate, to take orders, to try to preserve peace. And he doesn't seem disheveled. He doesn't seem down. He doesn't seem vengeful. He just seems like this area of hope. And it's funny because it, to me, connected with Superman. I was like, like Alan is the most Superman character out of everybody in the show, because the truth of the matter is, like, he hasn't changed. Like, he's like, I'm still hopeful. I'm still going to do this. I'm still dedicated to this. And yet he's so strong. And the crazy thing is, because he also is an orphan, he's also modified. Like, he's got an actual destiny there. Now, where they leave him, that's a whole nother question. He had his own, you know what? He actually had his, doomsday situation that happened.
Yes.
And it's just so interesting because I want to see more of Alan, because Alan, he's just so non-jaded, but at the same time, he's so hopeful and funny and comedic. And I just want him to succeed. And I think he's a good ray of positivity, which every other character is dealing with so many different dimensional issues, but yet he's lost everything. So I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up because I never thought about it.
Yeah, I like him. By the way, Seth Rogen, perfect choice.
Right? I was thinking the same thing. Perfect
Absolutely.
choice. And what's even worse, I'm not gonna lie, they got me in that fourth episode. Was it the fourth? It was the third. I think it was the third episode, because they introduced like the elder that's supposed to be this good guy, and he was voiced by Peter Cullen, Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime was the traitor. I could not believe them. I was like,
that was Sentinel Prime. That was Sentinel Prime.
Right.
There.
This was a personal attack on me, because I was like, oh, well, we know who the good guy is. Clearly, I know that voice anywhere. It's gotten me to sleep multiple nights. Like, I trust that voice.
It's like if Sean Bean was in a movie and he did not die. You'd be like, wait a minute.
Wait, there's got to be a post-credit scene, right? Which, no, funny enough, like the one Sean Bean movie that comes to mind that he lived in, strangely, Silent Hill. Of all the movies that he did not die, he lived in Silent Hill. Which still,
so this was your Silent Hill.
This was bad. This was rough. I'm not gonna lie. Just that voice and that action, I was appalled. Because when I was watching the episode, I was sending Sam messages in all caps. I was like, how dare you stream this for me? I was unhinged.
Because I was kind of like, I don't know, there's a common denominator here, and it's not, the math ain't mathing. Somebody's leaking stuff. And I was like, is it the old man? Like, nah, they wouldn't do that. Optimus wouldn't do that. He did. Because my man Alan got the works. He got the that was ruthless. The way Alan ended up in the third episode was so rough. And it was like, after the beating, what happened after that when he's at the hospital? Like, that was rough.
Oh yeah, that ain't enough. Oh yeah, we're just gonna unplug this life support real quick, which makes me think he's gonna make a comeback. They ain't gonna send him out, not like that. He gotta make some kind of comeback. We'll see. I'm hoping for it, because that was. I'm like, you're not gonna give me.
They need to give him the matrix of leadership. You know what I mean? Like, they gotta revive him.
Ain't no way they give him his own episode and kill him off at the end of it. I'm like, man, that's rude as hell.
Everybody gets one.
Right. I love his character too, though, because it is amazing. He's literally created to beat the Viltrumites, to essentially keep them from just going around and murdering all of these different civilizations. Then they find out that he's not going to be strong enough. And it takes, I think, a certain kind of person to be able to bounce back and have the positivity that he does. Because I think for the majority of us, that would that would take so much to be able to come back around and figure out how do I create an idea of who the heck I am anymore. I was built for this thing. I can't live up to that expectation. And I think for a lot of us, that would just, oh man, it would just take so much to be able to mentally work through that. But Alan, there's just something about him that, you know, I think we all wish we had a little bit of Alan in us.
Yeah, he's definitely he definitely can, well, take a beating and keep on keeping on
In many ways, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course we haven't really dug too much into it. On the other side of that is Nolan, who is just moving on and a changed man at a way too fast rate, right? Like it, and it's funny because as I'm not that scene, I was glued to the screen while I was watching it because the artist did such a great job drawing Mark's face in that 4th episode. Like, go back and look at his face. It kind of reminded me of, do you remember in Lion King when Nala was telling Simba how horrible things had gotten in the Pride Lands, and Simba looked at her and was like, Hakuna Matata. And she looked at him like, what the hell did you just say to me? Like, that was the face that Mark had when he was like, oh, this is my wife and this is my new child. It's like, oh, so you learned the error of your ways from beating me to an inch of my life. Like, it was that whole thing. And what's funny is Nolan was almost like confused, like, look, I've changed, look how different I am. Like, Nolan was just expecting him to be like, oh, that's cool, Dad, I'm so glad.
I'm so glad you found your insect lady.
Right. It was so interesting how quick Nolan was like, we're cool now, right? Look, I got a new family. This is your brother. I've learned from my ways. And he wanted, Mark looked at his brother like, if I had a can of Raid right now.
You're forgetting, though, potentially the worst part. It's like, hey, look, I've changed. I tricked you to come here.
Right.
To show you I have changed, because look, I procreated with a bug person, and this is and they're seen as lesser than in my culture. Which, by the way, the main reason I tricked you into coming here is so that you would help me fight them, because they're going to come and destroy the civilization because I had the bug lady's kid, or had a kid with the bug lady. So it's like, what? Are you kidding me?
I can't believe it.
It's like Nolan, he's trying, but the world is still the universe is literally still revolving around him quite a bit.
But I think, excuse me, I think that was the moment when the Viltrumites came, and there was a moment when Nolan, break back into his ways and actually had Mark in the chokehold and saying, like, why did you make me do this? And basically him talking like, my kid is, about to, die. My wife's about to die. Why do I care? Why should I'm like, well, you should have done that back in Earth. Right. And that response he gave back to him just made, to me, it's like, he's not all the way there, but at least he's making progress. And I think, again, it's like, even then, regardless of that still was his brother. And then, so it's like, it's like, regardless of where my dad is, that's still my brother, and he's still innocent people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
He's lucky that Mark is a better man than he is, because I think if Nolan was in that position, he'd be like, nah, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
But you notice Nolan still shifted. He shifted right back when those other Viltrumites came. He was like, all right, Mark, we got to kill him. And he's like, I'm not going to kill anybody. And he's like, we got to kill him. And then he wanted to go back into dad mode again. And I'm like,
I mean, look, to play the devil's advocate on this, I mean, it really was a do or die situation. He knows what these people are about. And the truth of the matter is, I think that him having his son in the chokehold again, he really was trying to project, because he was like, I made this decision to not kill you, to not enslave everybody, and I left. And I don't know if that was the right decision. Why am I so weak? And I think that this happens. Like sometimes, like, you know, whether it's our parents or somebody older than us, we always have this moment where somebody kind of projects us like how they're really feeling. They're being very emotionally vulnerable. And I think that was another moment that he actually is sharing with him. He just knew that if we don't do this, everybody is going to die. And so it's kind of like he had to turn it off. He had to turn that little switch off in his brain, like, okay, I got to go back into kill mode to preserve everybody. But like, I need you to let it go right now so we can deal with it. But I mean, the truth of the matter is this happens all the time. Divorces happen all the time. People walk out all the time, and then immediately, you know, even sometimes like somebody like passes away and they need to have somebody else to move on. Like people process, you know, separation very differently, sometimes very quickly. I've seen it in different parts of my life with different people, different family members, where it's like they need to reconnect. It's like you question, like, have you recovered yet? Like, do you realize what just happened? It didn't matter. And I think that the outside perspective, that's a selfish thing to do, and it is. But for him, it was like, I think this is what I need right now to be able to reconnect with something. And I'm not justifying what he did. I think that's terrible. But I think that it happens so commonly that it just shows how human Nolan actually is, more than he'd like to get away. Because otherwise, why would he even care about reconnecting with any family? He shouldn't have done it at all. Like,
he definitely, yeah. I mean, he definitely not killing Mark. That, I mean, you saw he literally just like zipped off so quickly, all the blood burned straight off of him, and he just keeps, and he said, I just kept going till I hit, you know, I got somewhere. And it went so against his training and everything that he was meant to do in his entire culture and background and everything. It threw him through this huge loop. But yeah, it is it's just such mental gymnastics for Mark to have to deal with all this. Cause you're right. I mean, like we have a hard enough time when it's like, wait, so you were very committed in this one place, and then it's over for whatever reason. And then all of a sudden you're connecting somewhere else. We're very black and white. We like putting things in boxes. And so a lot of times if we see things as opposites, we don't think they can exist at the same time, when they often can. You can be happy and terrified at the same time. You know, you can care about two different people at the same time. You can, you know, there are all these things that feel very opposing that can exist at the same time, but we really struggle with it. And so poor Mark is having to deal with that part, the family dynamics. Oh, and also my dad murdered all of these people, and I'm a superhero, and how do I morally wrap my mind around him too? It's just so much for that poor kid to deal. I know he's technically an adult, but essentially like this poor kid to deal with in, it's like an hour. He finds out his dad brought him there, and now he's got to fight for his life, literally.
Yeah, it's a lot of the one of the coolest things about this show is just showing how Mark is fighting a multi-front war, right? Because he's dealing with, now it's like, okay, I really got to be there for my mom. I'm trying to maintain this relationship with my girlfriend. I'm trying to pass my classes. I'm trying to make Cecil happy. I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on with my dad right now. And it gets so difficult because that is all on like a planetary scale, what he's dealing with. But I mean, I think about it like, okay, I got bills to pay. All right. My son had an accident at school. I got to go take care of that. All right. My car engine, my check engine light just came on. Got to deal with that. Oh man, I forgot about my mom's birthday. I got to run and get a gift, and I got to figure that out and buy her dinner. I need to check my savings account. Like these are things that like will really happen and all hit at once. And it's just it's insane to me how relatable what Mark is going through, how relatable it is, and how grounded it is with real life issues that we all deal with and go through every day.
Yeah, because the easier thing that Mark could do is they screw it all. I'm just, you know what? Maybe my dad's right. Like maybe I don't need to process all this. Maybe I just need to just do this. Because the truth of the matter is, you take all the scenarios that Keeden just listed. It's like your head wants to just escape. Like screw this. Like screw all these kind of high expectations before I break. I need to do this for me. Which technically, that's what Nolan did. He's like, I'm out. Like I don't know how to reconcile this with this world. Like. I'm either one, have to kill my son and everybody in it, or two, like, you know, I'm just gonna do it, you know. And so I think that escapism is something that, you know, will be the other path. But Mark he's trying to stand his ground. It's just so much. And yeah, he does have other heroes, but they're all still trying to figure it all out. At the end of the day, his mortality is gonna come, and the longer he lives, every year it's gonna get rougher and rougher, which is why I'm so excited to see where the story goes, because like, yeah, this may end up being a great superhero story. I'm so excited. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I think this show has the opportunity to go further, where I think Young Justice was trying to go but didn't fully fleshed out as much as they could, because, you know, I was there when Young Justice first came out when I was in middle school. And now here they go with, you know, Young Justice season 4, you know, are in college and getting married and everything, right? And you see these characters getting married and having kids and stuff. But to see that in other areas where it's like now we have not only just the mature or graphic nature of Invincible, but also they're able to do more storylines. They have the freedom to do whatever what they want. They're not restrained to be like, oh, we're trying to target, you know, we got to be, you know, we can't say that source material. Like they go over very, very dark stories that I feel like no other superhero property have actually dealt with. And I feel like that gives them an opportunity to be the first to do it, because we know right now in the current, you know, medium today, we're just seeing things being repeated just with different skin. But Escape, well, no, this show definitely has an opportunity as it progresses in multiple seasons to just be original.
Definitely. Yeah, it's phenomenal. All right, so Sam, anything that you wanted to touch on in addition to everything we've unpacked a lot tonight. It's been great.
Yeah, we've really kind of gone through the ringer. I mean, the Adam Eve episode was a very interesting one. We don't have to talk about it here, but he didn't get as much in season 2 just yet. But from what she had to deal with in the first season, and specifically with her family and what that kind of does to a person subconsciously and emotionally, like it's just really interesting, because I don't know where her character is going to go, because she's so strong, but at the same time, emotionally, she's just unraveling. And I think the biggest thing is that every single character, some kind of a way, has been emotionally compromised from the first season. And the fact that everybody is emotionally compromised, you know, of course, it brings out great characterization and, you know, development, but it's kind of like, I don't know where some of these threads are going to go. Because take the Immortal, for instance. The man got killed. Like, he was dead first episode. Then they brought him back. And it's kind of like him, like now he's in the second season again. And he's having to deal with the fact that, you know, he's having to deal with a person's, you know, spawn or son that basically effectively killed him. I don't know. Everybody's dealing with their own trauma and emotional. I don't know. Like they're just not. They're developing, but I'm not sure where the threads are going to go. Which is why I think that the main villain, which we haven't talked about of this season, that's why he's so interesting to me, and he's being played by Sterling K. Brown. I really feel like he's kind of like the embodiment of everybody else's turmoil that they're dealing with. But I think that his can be so much more destructive because he's dimensional. Like he goes between different dimensions. And I am so curious to see how his pain is going to manifest something very different.
Oh man, his is so sad too, because they also like they have all these intricate stories, and the nice thing is you do get these little tastes, and you're just desperate to learn more about all these different characters. But doing something heroic to keep people from dying, and then that results in you essentially lose yourself and then become the villain, right? I mean, that's just, it's such a sad story. And yeah, like you said, I mean, here's our main antagonist here. And then, you know, you were talking about Adam Eve earlier. I feel like anyone who goes into a helping field feels a little too much like Adam Eve. I mean, that poor thing, she is trying to make the world a better place, and she is discovering how complicated it is.
Mm-hmm.
And is also a very, very relatable thing. I honestly sometimes try not to even think about her character, just because I'm like, oh, too relatable. I'll focus on everybody.
Oh yeah. As a teacher, I'm like, oh, yep. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
try to do the right thing, and then it's always somebody mad at you.
There's always somebody mad at you. You're always stepping in something.
Yeah.
There's always a reason something wasn't fixed.
Yeah.
She can literally create matter and change whatever she wants, and even she can't figure it out. It's like, oh no. But yeah, all these characters are so interesting. Some of my favorites are Monster Girl and Robot. I love this idea of you have this maturing woman whose body is literally de-aging on her. And so she's treated like a child all the time. And once again, another way of being isolated and separated from people. Robot growing up in essentially like a pod, and he's now having to learn what it's like to actually be in danger. He sent a robot before, and now he's in the mechanics. And so he's having to learn, oh, it's terrifying to be out here with everybody else. It's not the same as, you know, when you do it on a screen, essentially. But yeah, so many cool characters.
Well, you even got Mortal and what's her name?
Duplicate.
Oh yeah.
Duplicate. Like again, like now, that's a very unique story, but I won't spoil anything with that. But again, like with just one single line when she was telling the Rex is like, this is the only person I ever met that actually died as many times I have. Right. And we never actually think like these are not holograms. These are physical, you know, these are physical matter body that she's getting killed, multiple times and stuff. So it's like, what does that actually do to her mentally? Again, it's just like, so and when she said that, it's like, okay, oh man, she might be just doing another hookup. Like, no, this is actually, it's a deeper thing. Yeah. So
I can't help but notice that you seem to bring in all of the times when people have sex in the show.
Hey, you can't. Hey, no analyzing JVS members. It's in the contract. It's in the contract. No breaking down JVS member. Wasn't part of the deal.
Emotional damage. It's okay, Mike. Don't worry about it, bro.
For the record, Mike was also picking at us for being old before. So
yeah,
no, I'm not. It's not picking. It's like I'm receiving wisdom. I'm being trained in the ways of the Force. You know what I mean? So I'm just like,
it still hurts.
I'm like, listen, I aspire to be with y'all someday. Like, listen, some people don't know what Static Shock is today. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
That is.
I can believe it. After everything we've lived through with COVID, I can believe it.
That is true. That is true.
Oh man.
But all right. So all right. I got Sam. Mike, any final thoughts on your end?
I'm really intrigued to see what the part 2 or rest of the other half of Invincible season 2 going to be, because yes, even though I've read the comics, they are taking a lot of creative liberties with this few episodes that we have seen. Again, I commend them for even not even just with this season, also what they did with the Adam Eve special. Like they're actually are doing a very good job of just spending their time with these characters and fleshing them out. But more importantly, again, just knowing that even though you think this might be a throwaway character, you may be surprised. All it takes just one episode and they become your fan favorite. And anything, there's also something we can take out of this each episode, especially I think episode 3, where it's like if anybody either experienced COVID or just in general just experiencing loss or grief, whatever that might be for you. Again, it's just like this is a very, very enlightening show, but also timely as well.
Nice. Final thoughts, Emilia.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like those side characters, and I think it's a great point that you never know who's going to be your favorite, and I love that. So I just love things like this where you want to pay attention and really see. I think for me, what I'm most looking forward to is seeing Mark and his dad and just where things go from there. I mean, I know things are left very much a question mark at the end of the episode, but just seeing how Mark deals with all of that and where things go. Because once again, it's just a huge mental roller coaster that Mark has been put through. And now he's seen other Viltrumites. So now he's seeing his dad in a larger context. And I'm really interested to see where that goes.
That's a good point. This has been so awesome. This has been an even better crossover than I could have ever imagined. Thank y'all so much for agreeing to do this. Before we leave, I was going to give everyone a chance to plug their channels. I know all these people dearly. I work with all of these people dearly, but still got to give the chance for y'all to shout your networks out. Sam?
Yeah, so we're JVS Media Productions. We do reviews, discussions, interviews. We go to film festivals. We handle conventions. As far as reviews, we cover everything from movies to TV shows. We used to cover comics. May get back to that. We're trying to go and cover games. So yeah, it's all full entertainment hub. It can be found on YouTube at TeamJVS, as well as you can type in teamjvs.com to go to our URL as well. And this was amazing. Thank you, Keeden. Thank you, Emilia.
Absolutely. Mike.
Yeah, so you can also find me at Team JVS as well. You can also find me on my channel, Jedi Mike 7, reviews, news, and truth. Do the same thing, do movie reviews. I posted several interviews as well. And continue to be posting stuff relatively soon. But yeah, you can follow me at Jedi Mike 7, the handle down below, and also on Team JVS.
Awesome. And last but not least, Emilia.
Yeah, so excited that we did this. Thank you so much, JVS, for joining us, collabing. So you can find me through Bat Therapy Podcast. So anywhere that you listen to podcasts, we also have a YouTube channel. So if you prefer watching the videos, we also are trying to build up some like shorter videos and stuff. One other thing that we didn't do today, but we also have through our podcast and on YouTube are mindful nerd moments. So if you like mindfulness, or if you don't think you like mindfulness because you think it might be boring or just not your thing, but you are nerdy, you should check it out. You can do things like mindfully flying through the air like Invincible, or throwing a batarang like Batman, or other things where we just take advantage of the helpfulness of mindfulness. So yeah, and we're also on social media, all that jazz. Bat-therapy.com is our website.
Awesome. Yes, this has been absolutely phenomenal. But yes, you can find me at all the places that these folks have mentioned, because I am a part of Team JVS as well as a part of the Bat Therapy podcast. Like and subscribe to both of them because they're both amazing. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great night, and thank you so much for being a part of this.
Yay.